Prime Minister Narendra Modi is all set to visit Srinagar in the midst of all this buzz around assembly elections in Jammu and Kashmir to be held later this year. In fact, Supreme Court has given a deadline of September for the elections to be held. It's the Prime Minister's first visit to the valley after he took charge as the Prime Minister of the country for the third time. He has assumed the command of the country for the third time, and this is his first visit to Jammu and Kashmir. Prime Minister will be on a two-day visit to J&K. He will reach Srinagar on Thursday evening, which is 20th of June. He will also participate in empowering youth, transforming J&K programs at 6 p.m. at Sher-e-Kashmir Center in Srinagar. He will also be there at the occasion of World Yoga Day on the 21st of June, something that the country has observed for the last 10 years. Joining me now is Himanshu and Nazir, who have more details on the story. To you first, Nazir, tell us, how is Jammu and Kashmir looking at the arrival of the Prime Minister there, because this is just happening within days of him assuming charge as the Prime Minister of the country for the third time?
Well, the first Prime Minister has chosen Srinagar to observe World Yoga Day on 21st of this June. And before that, he will be staying in Srinagar for a night. He'll reach here by 20th evening in Srinagar, and Srinagar then he will have an interaction with the students of different universities, though virtually from Sher-e-Kashmir International Convention Center. And then next morning he will be observing the Yoga Day at this Sher-e-Kashmir International Convention lawns, which is in the middle of the Dal Lake. So it would be amazing, picture perfect to show yoga on the banks of Dal Lake, and the world will see that Prime Minister would be leading that. But it has a major political message and the symbolism. Number one, this visit is coming after the successful parliament elections in Jammu and Kashmir, first major elections post-abrogation of Article 370, where people in large numbers, rather unprecedented numbers in last 40 years, participate in elections, broke all the previous records, and there was no boycott, there was no violence, zero violence, most peaceful elections and most participatory elections. Number two, there's now assembly elections. So this is the one of the 4 states BJP has actually appointed the election, in charges for 4 states, including Maharashtra, Haryana, Jharkhand, and Jammu and Kashmir. That also indicates that BJP is preparing for election. And Supreme Court has already set a deadline for holding assembly elections in Jammu and Kashmir in September. Because Jammu and Kashmir is without an elected government for last more than 6 years now. And last assembly elections were held in 2014. And it is the longest gap, when J&K could not have the assembly elections, 10 years, more than 10 years. So that is something which people are hoping that since Prime Minister has, during his last visit, during the elections at Udhampur, promised holding assembly election and restoring statehood of Jammu and Kashmir.
Right.
And now Prime Minister choosing to visit Srinagar soon after the Modi 3.0. It is a very significant, and people are waiting for it. Large number of students will be participating in this interaction with the Prime Minister, and next day large number of people will be also joining the yoga.
Absolutely. Those are very interesting points. Thank you, Nazir. To you, Himanshu, next. Nazir has also pointed out that there is a certain amount of excitement across the country over the increased voting percentages in the Lok Sabha elections in the valley. And of course, there is anticipation that assembly elections will also be held soon in J&K. But J&K has also been facing attacks by terrorists in the last few weeks. In fact, there have been 4 attacks of sorts in both Doda and Kathua districts. So tell us, what is the significance of the Prime Minister visiting the valley at this time? It's clearly also sending out a message that the government is completely committed to the safety of the valley.
Absolutely, Vasudha. You just see, it was in September 2014 when Prime Minister Narendra Modi, in a conference in the United Nations, had first proposed that June 21st should be celebrated as the International Day of Yoga. And this would be the 10th year of the International Day of Yoga. And the Prime Minister Modi, I think, has very consciously selected Srinagar as the venue for this special 10th International Day of Yoga. As you know, this has become a big global event. I was just looking at the United Nations website. The UN, the Indian Permanent Mission to the UN, has actually organized a special program in UN headquarters. And we know that this International Day of Yoga is now being celebrated in almost every part of the world. It has become a very big global event. And on that day, Prime Minister of India being in Kashmir, doing yoga, a mass yoga demonstration with thousands of Kashmiri citizens, sends a very positive, a very big message to the global community. Prime Minister Modi knows that on that day, the focus of the global community will be on Srinagar on that day, because he will, of course, be leading the International Day of Yoga events by doing yoga with thousands of people. So there is a lot of political symbolism, a lot of political significance, and this also comes at a time, the point that Nazir was making, that the Election Commission has already started making preparations to give final stages. In fact, it is in final stages now to conduct the assembly elections, which are long pending. And I had done a small interview with Chief Election Commissioner Rajiv Kumar, in which he had very categorically said that before the end of the year, I can say 100% we will be holding elections in Jammu and Kashmir, and you will see very soon we are going to announce the dates.
Right.
So at the time when the Election Commission is in the process of finalizing the preparations for holding assembly elections, Prime Minister Modi deciding to be in Srinagar, of course, sends a very big political and diplomatic message to the global community.
Well, that's very interesting. Nazir, also tell us, what is the political message that the Valley has sent out? Because while Umar Abdullah and Mehbooba Mufti have lost elections, there is some message that's come out in the form of increased voting. And if there's one decision that the BJP is extremely confident of, it is the abrogation of Article 370. And the Prime Minister is also pushing forward his development narrative in Kashmir. In that whole context, how significant will be this visit of the Prime Minister? Will development also be a top focus here?
Well, last rally Prime Minister was held in Kashmir was in October, in April this year. That was a large rally, first large rally held by Prime Minister of the abrogation of Article 370. And BJP has been consistently talking about liberating Kashmir from the dynasty rule. In that sense, they can have some satisfaction, both the former chief ministers and both the main leaders of the two regional political parties, National Council and PDP, they have lost these elections. And though they have no celebrate, were not contesting elections, and those who have defeated these both the leaders are clearly not the BJP ideology. They are actually professing the same ideology, PDP or the NC. Maybe even Indian Rashid, who is in jail for last 5 years at Tihar jail, has also won and defeated Umar Abdullah. Now, when Prime Minister is coming here, it has a huge significance, because when the Jammu and Kashmir is in news for bad reasons, because the major terror attacks, particularly in Jammu region. So when Prime Minister is in Srinagar, doing yoga in Srinagar, leading the country to celebrate, to observe the International Yoga Day and send a message across the country and the world that Kashmir is safe enough that Prime Minister himself can lead the yoga in Srinagar on the banks of Dal Lake. Number two, it also shows there may be certain attacks, but terror cannot be allowed to derail the process or the achievements made over the last 5 years in terms of, law and order, peace, and fighting militancy. And more so, elections, that democracy cannot be allowed or cannot be left at the mercy of terror or the militant attacks. So Prime Minister's visiting here is very, very significant, and it is a message that Kashmir is peaceful enough where Prime Minister can do yoga, lead the country to observe the Yoga Day, International Yoga Day from Srinagar.